After the funeral, my children called every day to check in. That is, until they started talking about legal options if I didn't sell the house. 2 weeks after John's funeral, the house felt unusually empty. I stood in the living room on a Thursday morning, watching rain streaks roll down the window pane. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. It was Michael, my son. "Mom, it's me," he said, his voice urgent. "I'm calling to talk about the house. Jessica and I have discussed it thoroughly." He got straight to the point, without a single word of concern. "I found an investor," he said. "They're very interested. Our house insurance is about to expire, and the renewal fee is high. I think this is the right time." "This house has been paid off for a long time, son," I replied softly, my voice even. On the other end of the line, Michael sighed, a sound that clearly showed his impatience. "Mom, I know. But that's not the only issue. How much is Dad's pension? We don't want you to struggle alone." I glanced out at the Japanese maple tree in the garden, its leaves a deep red in the rain. "Are you really worried about me, or is there another reason?" "Of course I'm worried about you," he answered, his voice a little hesitant. "But we also have to be realistic. The money would help a lot. Leo's tuition, and the project my wife and I are pursuing." I had heard enough. "Let me think about it," I said and ended the call. The room seemed more suffocating. Not long after, Jessica called. Her voice was gentle, a bit more caring. "Mom, how are you? Michael and I are so worried about you." "I'm fine," I replied. "Actually, I'm calling about the house," she said. "I think Michael makes a good point. Why don't you sell the house and move closer to us? We have a small guest apartment in the backyard, very private and cozy. We'd be closer to each other." I pictured the small, isolated space of the guest apartment. "And what about the money from the sale, my dear?" I asked. "Oh, after we renovate that apartment for you, if there's any left, you can help us out a little," she said casually. "It's for Leo's future, you know." A plan had already been set. "Jessica," I asked, "when was the last time you called me just to ask how I was?" "Mom, what are you talking about?" she stammered, silent for a moment. "It's been 2 months," I said. Silence. Then she changed the subject, her voice a little probing. "You're still sending money to Leo regularly, right?" "Same as always. $500 a month." "Yeah. I mean, he doesn't need to know it's from you," Jessica said quickly. "Just let us tell him it's from us, so he doesn't have to think about it." I understood their intention. "I have something to do," I said and hung up. After the phone calls, I was alone again. I stood in the hallway. The late afternoon sun shone through the window, making the dust sparkle on the table. John's glasses were still there, right on top of the book he would never finish. I reached out my hand, then pulled it back. Touching them now, I wasn't ready. For some reason, my feet led me to his study. The smell of lemon oil and his cologne was still there. A woody scent lingered on the curtains. His desk was exactly as he left it. I sat in his chair. The leather was worn where he used to rest his hands. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I remembered the bottom drawer, which was always stuck. I pulled it open with a strong yank. Beneath a stack of tax files and manuals, I found a blue folder. It was heavier than I thought. I placed it on the desk. There was a yellow note stuck to it, in John's square handwriting. He wrote, "If you are reading this, you need to know what's inside." For the first time since the funeral, I felt something else. Not hope, but a path forward. I opened the folder. The first thing I saw were financial papers. There were bank accounts I had never known about. All of them were in John's name. He had set aside a separate sum of money. Below were property deeds. I held my breath. A villa in Portugal, purchased 10 years ago. Only John's name was on it. My name wasn't there. That was his plan B. A place where I could disappear. And there were many other documents. Life insurance policies I had never signed. There was a newer, smaller one. The beneficiary was only one person. Our grandson Leo, not his parents. John had made his decision. And then, I saw his letter. He wrote it 2 years ago. "Sarah, if you've found this, then I'm gone. And if I've guessed correctly, the calls have already started. They'll swarm you, not because they need you, but because they want what we've built. I paid off the house so you wouldn't have to worry. But I know they'll try to convince you that you can't manage on your own. That's why there's a second plan. I read, as if hearing his voice in my head. His voice was calm, steady, not angry, but full of conviction. At the very back were the final instructions. Information for a law firm in Lisbon, and a man named Marco. Next to it was a handwritten note. Trust Marco. He owes me his life. It's a long story. I put the paper down on the table. My heart was steady, but my mind was spinning. With what John had left behind, I was no longer just a grieving woman. I had a plan. My first call was not to Michael or Jessica. I dialed a number in an old address book, a number I hadn't used in over 10 years. Catherine Alvarez, a lawyer specializing in wills. She had handled a case for John's aunt once. I trusted her. She was no-nonsense, precise, and hated drama. Sarah, she said as soon as I was put through, I'm so sorry about John. Come by this afternoon. Bring whatever he left you. I heard the click as she opened her calendar. That sound reassured me more than coffee ever could. Catherine's office was in an old brick building. I placed the blue folder on her desk. I immediately flipped to the page I wanted her to see first. It was the deed to the house. John had signed it over to me 6 years ago. John insisted on it, I said, my throat tightening. She nodded. He did the right thing, she said quietly, her eyes scanning quickly but not missing a single detail. If someone wants to sell a house without your signature, they're selling thin air. Michael has already found a buyer, I replied, my voice dry. Catherine's mouth twitched, but it wasn't a smile. Good. Now I'm going to clarify 2 legal points. She placed a form letter on the table. We'll fill out the name here. Send it to the real estate agent, the buyer's agent, whoever sent you the papers. Demand that they stop representing you. All future contact must be in writing. I skimmed through it. I didn't pay much attention to the content, but to the tone. I liked that tone. It wasn't angry. It was a conclusion. When we were done, my mind felt cool. I had calmed down. That afternoon, Michael left a voicemail. Mom, call me back. Don't do anything rash. We're just trying to make things easier. That word again. Easier. It sounded like a chain. I ignored it and didn't reply. Then I did something. I called a moving company. The smell of cardboard boxes in the garage, a smell of dust and new beginnings. I started with their rooms, the rooms they hadn't been in for 20 years. Michael's room first. I packed yearbooks, the baseball card set he once swore would pay for college, and the blue tie I bought him. Jessica's room was different. The piano books from when she was so insistent on learning. I carefully wrapped them, as if I were wrapping up a story I no longer wanted to fix. On each box, I wrote clearly, Michael, personal items, return, Jessica, piano books, return. The word return made me feel lighter. When someone treats you like something to be taken advantage of, sometimes all you need to do is give back what they've left behind. At midday, Michael called. This time I answered. I had a feeling today was the day things had to become clear. What are you doing? He didn't bother with a greeting. Greg from the agency said you threatened to sue. I promised I would, I replied. That's a different word. You're being unreasonable, he snapped. This buyer is real, the price is good, we're trying to. Who is we? I asked softly. He took a sharp breath. Jessica and I. Our family. You know that. I do know, I said. And that's the problem. I heard a pause. I knew he was calculating. If you keep making this difficult, he finally said, we'll have to consider other options. Guardianship of property doesn't happen by itself, you know. His words were like a shard of glass, but I didn't let it wound me. That's a serious accusation, I said, my voice still even. Are you saying I'm not of sound mind? I'm saying, his voice softened, that we can't just sit by and wait for you to make a mistake. I just made one, I said, by answering your call. Then I hung up. I had recorded everything. Any further threats would be sent directly to my lawyer. The next morning, I had the boxes moved. 8:12, my phone buzzed. It was a picture from the movers. The boxes were at Michael's front door. 4 minutes later, another picture. The items were on Jessica's doorstep. By 8:33, the doorbell rang. I knew that knock. I latched the chain and opened the door a crack. "What is this?" Michael roared, holding out his phone. "That is," I said, "your life. I'm giving it back to you." Saturday came. The winter sky was gray. I had been up since 6. Closer to 10, I heard the familiar sound of a car on the gravel. Michael's car. He always brought his own storm with him. I opened the door before they could knock. Michael came in first, his shoulders hunched forward, his jaw clenched. Jessica followed, her cheeks flushed from the cold, her lips pressed tightly together as if she were holding back something that might break her teeth if it escaped. Leo wasn't there. His absence felt like a draft. "Good morning," I said. "We need to solve this," Michael said, not sitting down. He paced back and forth on the rug, like a man measuring a field for a fence that would be taller than the permit allowed. "Coffee?" I asked. Because offering hospitality to those who have rehearsed hostility has its own way of derailing their script. "No," he snapped. "Yes, please," Jessica said, and the words seemed to surprise her. I poured her a cup. She stared at the steam as if it could tell her what to say next. I sat in my spot and let the chair make its authentic, creaking sound. "You said solve, Michael. That implies there's a dispute. Please state what your dispute is." "The house," he said, as if those 2 words could condense into law. "You can't keep it. It's not practical." "There's no mortgage," I repeated, because repetition is sometimes a form of obedience and sometimes a mirror. "Taxes, maintenance, safety," he fired back. "It's not sustainable." Jessica's voice was softer. "Mom, we're worried you'll fall, worried you're alone." "You're worried about the house belonging to me," I said. "That's not the same worry." Michael stopped pacing. "We found another buyer, at a higher price. We have a letter of intent." "You had," I said, and slid Catherine's certified mail receipt across the table like a game piece. "Your buyer has been informed that all future contact must be through my lawyer. There will be no sale." "This is ridiculous," he said. "I'm forcing you to say what you want out loud," I said calmly. "That's why you're angry." He glared at me. For a moment, I saw him as the 7-year-old boy he once was, the boy who hated the baseball bat that was too heavy, but he hated it more when I tried to help him hold it. He shifted tactics. "If you're not going to be practical, we will file for guardianship of property." Jessica flinched. She hadn't expected him to bring that up. She placed her coffee cup down very carefully. "Then file it," I said. My voice was so calm that all 3 of us were surprised. "You'll find that a judge prefers facts, not feelings. Bring your evidence. I'll bring the recordings." Michael's mouth opened, then closed again. He didn't like the idea of his voice being recorded by someone else. Jessica tried to salvage the situation. "We don't want to do these things," she said. "We want you to be safe. We want you close." "In the basement," I said. "In our home," she pleaded. "In your basement," I repeated. "Let's be precise." Silence. Then I reached for the phone. I placed it in the middle of the table and put it on speakerphone. "We should call Leo," I said. "This concerns his tuition and my house." Jessica's hand reached out. "Don't get him involved in this." "He's already in it," I said. "He just doesn't know the truth." The phone rang. It sounded louder than usual, because no one dared to breathe. On the second ring, Leo answered. "Hi, Grandma." His voice was clear. "Hello, Leo," I said gently. I looked at Jessica. She was looking down. "I'm on speakerphone. Your mom and Uncle Michael are here. We're at my kitchen table. I wanted us to talk together." "Oh," he said. His voice was a little hesitant. "Okay." The table was silent. The air was heavy. "Mom said you were thinking of selling the house," Leo asked. His question gave them away. Jessica quickly put her hand over her mouth. "Because we're helping Grandpa and Grandma think," Michael started to say. I raised my hand, interrupting him. "Leo," I said, "do you receive the money I send you every month?" Silence. $500 a month. Since your first year, I added. "Do you receive it?" Again, the heavy silence. "What money?" he asked. His voice was tiny. It made me want to turn back time. I didn't look at Jessica. I only looked at the bowl of lemons on the table. They were the only real thing right now. Your account ending in 3,842, I said. I transfer the money on the second business day of every month. I heard Leo's breath catch over the phone, as if he were sitting right here. Mom said it was. He hesitated. The words hung in the air. I thought it was from you guys. I wanted you to have what you needed without having to ask, I said. Michael slammed his hand on the table. Mom, this is exactly why. Together, I interrupted, still not looking at him. We need to talk about this together. On the other end of the line, Leo let out a sob, a sound of pain. The whole room seemed to sway. Mom? Jessica closed her eyes tightly. Leo, my love. I spoke softly into the phone. A total of $12,000. 24 months. 500 each month. It's not everything, but it's not nothing. Leo started to cry. Grandma, he said, his voice choked. Why didn't you tell me? Your mom told me not to, I replied. She said it would make things complicated. Complicated for whom? Leo asked. Complicated what? No one answered him, because no one could answer without admitting who they really were. I looked at Jessica, not in an accusatory way. She met my gaze, like a student who finally understands that this test has no pre-written answers. I didn't want you to, she swallowed. To feel like you owed him. I wanted you to think that You wanted recognition, Leo said through his tears. His words were cruel, like every truth just revealed. You wanted me to keep calling you a hero. Jessica's face crumbled. Michael stood up abruptly, staggered, then sat back down. We don't do this, he said, to no one in particular. You started it with a phone call, I said. Without malice. Their front had broken. The phone was dead. The room seemed to expand, because the truth had taken its space. Jessica buried her face in her hands, as if darkness could rearrange everything. I didn't mean to, she started, then stopped, because she knew the rest of that sentence was a lie. I thought if he knew, he would look at me differently, or look at you differently. You wanted to protect your story, I said gently. You wanted to keep the image of the one who fixes everything. Michael found his anger again. That was where he felt safest. So this is the plan. Humiliate us. Make us look like the bad guys. Then you get to keep your house and your pride. Are you done? I asked. Yes, I said. That part is done. Now listen. This is how it's going to be. I pushed a piece of paper across the table. It was a list I had rewritten by hand. I will not sell the house. I will not move into your basement. I will help Leo directly. If you interfere, everything will stop. Jessica flinched at the last line. It was as if it had thorns. Please, she said. Just one word. You should have said that word sooner, I replied. I'm not your enemy, I added, looking at them. Michael pushed his chair back and stood up, so fast that the chair almost fell. He glared at the bowl of lemons as if they had insulted him. Congratulations, he said. You won. This isn't a game, I said. Everything is a game, he replied, and walked to the door. Michael, I called. He stopped. When you talk to your real estate agent, tell them not to send any more mail. My doorstep is for people who know my name. He left without a reply. The door closed quietly behind him. Jessica remained. Her coffee cup was cold. She stared into it, as if looking into a mirror she didn't like. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. For the first time, I believed her. She wasn't calculating anymore. She was tired. You can't fix it, I said. Not today. And maybe not alone. She nodded, looking so small. Mom, are you going somewhere? Yes, I said. Not today. And not to a basement. Will you tell me when? When I'm ready, I said. And when that happens, there will be no negotiations. She stood up. Can I bring Leo over tomorrow? Yes, I said. But leave the money talk at the door. We'll talk like family, not like accountants. A small smile appeared on her lips. Cake, she said, hesitantly. Cake, I replied. Sunday. When she was gone, The house seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Then came the hearing. The room smelled of old paint and stale air. Michael and Jessica were there, along with a lawyer I didn't know. Leo also came. He sat quietly in the back row. Seeing him, my heart felt warm. Their lawyer began. He painted a picture of an old mother, unable to manage her house, of children who only wanted to do what was best for their mother. He said, "This is to protect Mrs. Hale's well-being." It was my turn. I opened the folder. Protect my well-being? This house has been paid off for 6 years. The taxes are paid in full. But that's not the problem. I pushed a stack of papers toward their lawyer. The problem is, John had more than one house, and he made his wishes very clear. It was an addendum to John's will, something they had never seen. In it, he established a trust for Leo. The trust included not only this house, but also the 2-acre lot next to it. The lot that I had quietly purchased after John's diagnosis. The property was no longer in my name, nor was it in theirs. Jessica's face went pale. "Mom, you can't." "I can," I said softly. And I did. I looked at them. Everything John left behind, I protected it his way. You only talked about maintenance and taxes. You never once mentioned his garden, his maple tree. You only saw square feet. We saw 25 years of our lives. The presiding judge cleared his throat. He said, "With this new documentation, there is no basis for the petition." Then he closed the folder. That was my final victory. No gavel strike, no yelling. Their plan simply collapsed quietly. The airport always makes me feel so small. I handed over my passport. The scanner confirmed my existence. The flight to Portugal, that was my journey. I stepped outside. The air in the Algarve was pleasant. A man stood not far away. He was holding a piece of paper with my name on it. He was small, with neatly combed hair. When he saw me, his face lit up. He walked over. "Mrs. Hale." I replied, "Marco." He hugged me. It was a very natural hug. His shoulder smelled of oranges and clean linen. He released me, then said, "Mr. John would be angry if I didn't welcome you like this." I smiled. He would only pretend to be. Marco nodded. He understood, as if he had been there with us. We drove. When we arrived, he said, "The house is here." He looked at me, as if he wanted to share this emotion. The house was smaller than my house in America. White walls, blue shutters. It wasn't for show. It was a home. Inside, there was a bowl of lemons on the table. Marco told me about his debt. When he was young, he made a big mistake. John had gone to the law office with him. He had saved his dignity, and he let people keep their dignity, he said. That's worth more than money. When he asked me to look after this house, I promised I would. My new life had begun. Spring arrived in Portugal, as if someone had just opened a window. A window I didn't know had been painted shut. The mornings were still cool. Coffee was wonderful then. But by midday, the sun was everywhere. I had gotten used to the rhythm of life here. On Thursday, Leo's plane landed. I went to the airport to pick him up. Marco insisted I carry a small sign. He said it was for ceremony. I thought it was a bit silly, until I saw his face. He looked around, and his eyes lit up when he saw his name. He ran the last few steps, just like a child. He hugged me so tightly. He said into my coat, "You're here." I replied, burying my face in his hair. "I'm here, and so are you." On the way back, Leo looked at everything, just like I did on my first day. But he was happier, no doubt about it. When we stopped in front of the house, he stood looking for a long time. He whispered, "He knew. He knew what you would need." I said, "He knew." I put the key in the lock. It felt like an answer, not a question. The house seemed to welcome him. He ran his hand over the bookshelf, stood on the terrace looking out at the sea for a long time. Marco had placed a bowl of lemons on the table again, one of our habits. He asked me, "Are we allowed to be this happy?" "Yes," I said. I was surprised by my own answer. "We are allowed." That night, Leo and I stood on the terrace. He said, without looking at me, "Mom called." He continued, "She apologized. I told her she should have apologized sooner, but I believe her. Your mom loves you, I said. I know, he replied. But he didn't pretend that sentence solved anything. She asked if I was coming home. I said probably not. The next morning, I placed an envelope on the table, right next to the bowl of lemons. What is this? He asked. He looked cautious. An investment portfolio, I said. In your name. Your grandpa started it a month after his diagnosis. Its returns are boring, but reliable, just like me. It's for an unformed future. Now, maybe it's formed. He was stunned. He set this up for me. Your grandpa did, I said. I just handled the paperwork. The important part was his. He reached out his hand, then pulled it back. What are the conditions? 3 conditions, I said. Because love also needs rules. 1. Don't use a single penny to rescue your parents from their troubles. 2. Use it for your education, to live your own life. 3. Don't tell anyone the amount. You just need to say enough, and that's it. He nodded. His voice was on the verge of tears. I won't tell them, he said. Then he added, because he knew I liked the truth. Unless it's Mom, later, when she deserves it. That sounds fair, I said. On the way back from the fish market, Marco stopped us. He handed me a small package wrapped in brown paper. For the boy, he said, from Mr. John. He told me to only give it to him when I believed you had truly started your life. After Marco left, Leo held the gift. He held it very carefully. Inside was a thin notebook, the kind John used. The first page was in his handwriting. Leo, if Marco has given you this, it means your grandmother has done something brave. By the way, brave looks pretty boring. It's paperwork. It's keys. It's saying no when people want you to say yes. Brave also looks like your face. Like the men who came before you. Men who considered stubbornness a virtue when it's used to protect love. He continued to write. I came here once. After the diagnosis, and before I told anyone, I sat right where you're sitting and looked out at the sea. I wasn't sad. I was relieved. Not because I was leaving, but because I believed I had built a life I could pass on. If you're here, it means you're ready. Ready to hold on to what's important. This is my only instruction. Don't let the people who love you the most be the ones who make you feel the smallest. Oh, and remember to roll the lemon before you cut it. It will soften, just like people. Love, Grandpa. Leo flipped through the notebook. There was nothing else. He stood up and walked out onto the terrace. He stood with his back to me, as if letting a great joy burst inside him. When he turned back, he didn't let me read it. He put the notebook in his backpack, right next to his passport. I felt that was right. My life had returned to peace. Jessica and I started over, slowly, based on the truth. In the following weeks, Michael started sending pictures on Sundays. Pictures of cake at the cafe, cake at home. It looked like an effort. The third week, he sent another picture. It was his hand fixing a cabinet hinge. The picture was blurry, but it was perfect. One evening, Leo read John's notebook. Not the letter, but the pages that followed. He wrote, "When you let someone love you, make them learn your grandparents' names." He closed the notebook. He looked at me. His eyes were both like John's, and his own. "I'll stay," he said. "For a semester, maybe longer. Not to run away, but to run forward." I had found peace in Portugal, living my own life, with Marco and Leo by my side. I had done exactly what John left behind. For me, this was justice. Not a gavel, not a sword, nor fireworks. Just the right weight, a life that fits perfectly with my own.